I don't have to be real.
What's going on, everybody? It's Bill Bailey with today's Boondoggle. Neil.
Boondoggle! I wasn't sure if you wanted me to do that.
Yeah. Every time you're here, man, it's
I don't
part
know
of the
if
thing.
it freaks you out or not. We've never really discussed that little intro.
Well,
and we've done it all the time.
That's a keeper.
Yeah,
so I'll have to keep that for sure.
Niche. That's our niche.
Yeah. When you're here, it's.
I'll do it again. Boondoggle!
Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna use that when I get the new intro made and everything too. But anyway,
we got a special guest.
We got a special guest here, and I ran into this man getting a health treatment done, and overheard him speaking there. We've kind of run in some of the similar circles for health and wellness, and just what little bit you've shared with me of your story. I was like, wow, I really want to get your story out there. So I'll start with an introduction. Mr. Joseph Gardi.
Yes, thank you.
And I'll just let you start about your medical journey.
Well, first I want to say thanks for having me, and I greatly appreciate it. Anything I could do to give back and help the masses out there, I just want to be able to give back. I keep trying to fight the good fight, and people need to know exactly what's going on. I was living in South Florida, in Wellington, Florida, since 2004. I met my wife down there, and I was having I was an operator of a construction company called Roof Doctors, and my life was going perfect. Everything was going well. And then all of a sudden, around 2008-9, right after I got married, I started having some health issues, and I saw an immunologist, and it was nothing too bad. And after seeing this immunologist, he thought maybe some allergy shots would work. So I said, sure. And then shortly after that, my health started to deteriorate. Now, keep in mind, at that point, I was in my early 40s, never had a health issue, was always in top shape, played sports all my life, and things were going well. Happily married, a great company. We were very, very successful. Things were going perfect. I was always blessed with a lot of talent, and never needed to overexert myself because I was really blessed. And along the way, though, I was able to acquire some set of skills that later would help me in life. So I went to see this immunologist and gave me shots. And then slowly, my health started to deteriorate. And like I said, this was around 2008, 2009. And in 2010, my sister had passed away unexpectedly. And of course, that was quite a traumatic experience. And I remember coming up from South Florida to Ohio, and I wasn't doing great. And I started then all of a sudden taking a particular supplement. To this day, I credit for saving my life. It's called NAC or NAC, N-acetylcysteine. And this particular supplement is unbelievable. It's the precursor for glutathione, which glutathione is the master antioxidant in the body. It's produced in your liver. And being that's the master antioxidant, these are things that everybody should know. And right now, I would recommend they take. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but this is something that I was doing since 2010, and it saved my life. This is what's later protected to keep my lungs clear. There's not a better thing that could keep your lungs clear than NAC. Even if somebody's having, say, lung cancer, you want to take NAC. So anyway, I started taking this, and around 11 or 12, my health still started to deteriorate, and I was going to all these infectious disease doctors, one after another, and they started giving me a bunch of basically a bunch of steroids and antibiotics. And they kept feeding me these one after another. I was on Diflukin, some of the most powerful antifungal medications known. And then later to find out all that was doing was not getting to the root of the problem. It was ripping my gut apart. And I later had a problem with my blood-brain barrier. And several years later, I found out that my blood-brain barrier was compromised. And I'll get to that in a minute. So this is around 2011, 12. Then we go to 2013, and I call this the quiet before the storm. I thought that these drugs were kind of working. But then I was starting to eat all these sweets and do things that were uncharacteristic of myself. And all of a sudden, in February of 2014 is when I've never been the same since February of 2014. So after going to these some doctors in South Florida, I said, look, Ohio has the best doctors. So I thought.
Yeah.
So I flew up from South Florida up to Ohio. I was born and raised in Lakewood. And let me go back here a little bit. I'm a graduate from Ohio State. I graduated high school from Lakewood High School. I graduated from Ohio State in 1996, got a degree there. And then in 2004 is when late 2004 is when I went down to Florida with my business partner to open up our business down there. So now we're in 2014. In May of 2014, I flew up with my wife, had appointments at university and also at the prestigious Cleveland Clinic with immunologists. Not their best immunologists. They're the ones that run the show there. And so I go there, and I'll never forget one of the meetings I had with the immunologist and a few other doctors. And I thought I was literally losing my mind, literally. And I thought I was abducted. Something was going on, and I wanted answers. So I first went to university, and I went to their team of doctors. And they asked me, what was going on. And I kind of give them a little bit of an idea in terms of, my progression and where I was at that point. And I wanted answers. And basically, they thought that I had lymphoma. Okay. And I told them about the NAC that I was taking for a few years prior. And two of the doctors looked at me, and I'll never forget this, and said, "How did you know to take NAC?" And that was a flag there. And I looked at him and I said, well, let me ask you, how did I know not to take it? And they never answered me. So they asked me a few more questions, and they really said, well, we could kind of give you allergy shots. And I go, I'm past allergy shots. So I went over to the Cleveland Clinic I believe the next day, and met with their team of doctors and the top immunologists of their department, and told them exactly the same story. And same thing. Well, we could give you allergy shots. I'm like thinking that I would like them to run a barrage of tests on me, see what's going on. And all they pretty much, both of them, offered to do was allergy shots. And that's exactly what I had several years prior. So I was just
pretty frustrated.
Beyond frustrated. Yeah. At this point, my wife was like thinking, well, maybe it's a mental thing. And I'm like, it was frustrating. I felt like I had the world against me, and I knew that there was physical issues, not mental issues, that were going on. So I went back, but about a week later, back down to South Florida, and I was extremely frustrated. And this is after, for years, going to quote unquote mainstream medicine. Then that's when I had to open up my wallet. Thank the Lord that I had the money at the time that I did. I had a very successful business, and I had to spend quite a bit of money, probably just somewhere between $250,000 to $300,000 to get answers. I went to some holistic doctors in Florida, and I don't like the word protocol, but things that they had me doing helped me quite a bit. One of the first things off the bat is they had to see how much heavy metals that I had in me. And sure enough, I had heavy metals. I had mercury and lead and whatnot. Now,
where was the mercury coming from?
good question. It was probably from the shots that were given to me.
The allergy shots?
The allergy shots.
Now you
Probably.
hear that they put that type of mercury in a lot of vaccines.
Correct.
Or a certain type, because there's obviously different types of mercury, all stemming from the same mercury, I suppose. But it's interesting that they would put it in allergy shots.
Well, this could be from anywhere. I mean, it's in the food that we eat. I'm not just pinpointing it on the shot per se, but it's in obviously it's in paints. It's growing up. But I had quite a bit of heavy metal toxicity. But this is one of the very important things that the audience should know, is that if a doctor wants to find out if you have heavy metal toxicity, most mainstream doctors will give you a blood test. Absolutely not. A blood test will only show toxicity from heavy metals within the first 48 to 72 hours, because after that, it's out of the bloodstream and it's in the bone or the tissue.
Yeah.
So what you want to do,
you do the DMSA and urine
test,
yes,
exactly, or hair analysis.
Oh, I'm not sure, but I never heard the hair. But go ahead.
But the hair or the urine. Urine's the best. It's a provocative test. They collect your urine and whatnot, and then they use what's called mass spectrometry to find out the content. And they should do it multiple times, because depending on how toxic you are, the very first time might not really even show your true levels. You might have to do it another time to be. It's like a snow globe. You're breaking all that stuff up. And,
not to cut you off.
No,
keep you on your point, but I went through a lot of heavy metal detox. I went to a Dr. Frackleton at the Preventative Medicine Group in Lakewood. Frackleton at the time was probably in his early 90s. But he, from what little this could be a huge statement, but he was one of the most renowned mercury specialists in the world. And he would tell me that mercury was tail end Charlie in the process of detox, because it was the heaviest of the metals in the body. It would eventually come out last. And what would happen is the lighter metals, when you were doing the DMSA, I forget what DMSA stands for, but it's about 24-letter word, dimer something sulfur, and it would pull out the lighter metals. So you would get aluminum first, and you'd get out the aluminum, and then finally get to the heavier things the more you detoxed.
Correct. Absolutely. That's exactly right. And that's so important to know that the blood test isn't going to show the true barometer of how much heavy metals that you have. You have to get the hair analysis, but I prefer the urine. Yeah. And that will show you what you're really looking at. So I had IV infusion, and countless treatments of trying to get the heavy metals out. And slowly but surely, that was helping. But there's much more to what I was dealing with than just heavy metal toxicity. So I was trying to, at that point, put my life was upside down. I couldn't work. Obviously, it was very hard on my marriage. It was a complete nightmare. And then, of course, all the money that I was spending at a rapid rate trying to get answers. More of the answers came finally in 2015. In July of 2015, I flew into Dallas, Texas, and I sat with the late, great William J. Ray. He was, at the time, he was in his 80s. He was one of the top cardiothoracic surgeons in the country. But not just that, he was a true scientist. And when I sat with him, I sat with his A-team, scientists. I had the whole barrage. I was there in Dallas for about 2.5 weeks, probably spent about $30,000. And when they sat me down, they kind of had me sit down and just basically speak. They are like, tell me everything, kind of like what I'm doing right now. And they just was like boom, boom, boom. They would ask questions, but I would continually rapid fire speak, and they didn't want me to hold back on anything. And they would pause, and I remember one of the comments, they all looked and they said, well, what we're about to tell you, we did not learn in med school. Now think about this. This is a team of doctors and scientists telling me what they were about to tell me they didn't learn in med school. And right there, I kind of woke up and said, okay, wow. I was kind of living in a bubble from a long time. A lot of us live in a bubble, and we kind of get spoon-fed certain information. We got to think outside the box and not live in that cocoon. I call what's going on right now the Great Awakening. And I've said this for years, probably since 2016 or 17. I just keep wanting people to wake up and see really, really what's going on. So after I was there for 2.5 weeks, one of the couple big tests that they ran on me was called a triple-headed SPECT scan, which showed what was going on in my brain. And this triple-headed SPECT scan, the test itself cost $6,000. The Cleveland Clinic doesn't even have this test. University doesn't have this test. Why not? Well, I could answer that because it gives too much information. And then once you get that information, how are you going to treat the patient? Well, what do we do to treat a patient today? We know how to do a surgery. Most of the surgeries are not necessary. And we give prescription drugs. And that's the pharmaceutical mafia that comes into play. And I was very, very naive for many, many years. That now I come to know that if we get plenty of rest, drink plenty of fluids, and take our vitamins, which at one point I would like to say what type of vitamins that I am taking currently that could help a lot of people now today that are of great help. We just get proper rest and proper nutrition. That goes a long, long, long way. Because a lot of people don't realize there's only 3 ways people get sick. Really, 3 ways. You either have a genetic disposition, you're toxic, or you have a deficiency. And most people that have a deficiency are toxic. So my thing with every type of health concern, detox, detox, and detox. Because a lot of times these infections are a causation. You got to take care of the terrain. Once you take care of the terrain, you'll take care of the infections.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this wisdom comes from the Lord, and I've been blessed to be able to speak with a lot of great doctors and scientists along the way, and see which one are I call working for Team USA, and people that are others that are working for the globalists or the elitists. It's amazing how many people are there's a lot of great people out there, and then of course there's a lot of people that are compromised, unfortunately, and they're there to make money. And then there's a lot that are there to really help people. Obviously they're there to make a living, but they know that we've for many decades we've been swindled and fooled by the pharmacy and the medical establishment.
You know, it's interesting. We go back in history and we look at, let's say, the Aztecs or whatever, and the way they sacrifice people in their temples. And I often wonder, like, in the future, if they'll look back at this time and look at the hospitals as sacrificial temples, in a sense. Oh. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because of the foundation you're laying down.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's sad. And like I said, it's awoken me. It's kind of like I said, I had this, I thought, great life. I was very happily married, making good money. I was, I was able to, basically what I did, and I'm going backwards slightly, owning a construction company, my hands didn't get dirty. I had several crews, and my expertise was actually going after the insurance industry. I did a lot of hurricane restoration. And when I had a client, I would go in and evaluate property loss and let them know that assess the damage, and I would be there to represent them, because too often at the time the insurance would come out and undervalue the property assessment or the loss, and I had a unique set of skills to be able to properly evaluate. Also introduce them to structural engineers, and a lot of times I would go toe to toe with the insurance companies, and they didn't like me. They didn't like my partner, but we were very successful at what we did. And the reason why I'm saying this is because then later I would have to take those same set of skills to be able to flip them over and to use them towards the health insurance industry. And later, that's one thing that I'd really like to talk about, is the health insurance industry and how much of a Ponzi scheme it is, and how much right now we have socialized medicine. And I have 2 cases in federal court that I'd later like to kind of get into. And I'm not making this about me, because this affects 75% of the people out there have health insurance, and it's through their employer on ERISA Health. And that's a key word, ERISA Health. Most people don't know what ERISA is, and I'll explain that later. But I'm trying to set up everything in a timeline to go eventually fall back on what I'm saying. So you remember these things, ERISA Health and the health insurance, and how I was able to acquire my set of skills and use these skills to later go back and use these skills towards helping me with my health insurance. Because at one time I was getting health treatments that no other person on the planet could be able to get covered under their health insurance. And I'll talk about that in a bit. So anyway, and so
that SPECT scan though that you had, like, what did they find out? What was revealed to you?
Okay, yes, thank you for getting me a little bit back on track. I appreciate that. So in 2015, I was there for 2.5 weeks, and one of the big tests was the triple-headed SPECT scan, where I lay down and they put dye into me. They do that similar to some other tests, but this triple-headed SPECT scan showed the neurotoxicity in my brain. And it was a test that I never heard before. Everybody knows of the MRI and the CAT scan, but a triple-headed SPECT scan, the insurance was saying, well, we'll pay for this double-headed SPECT scan. So my doctors had to say, oh, no. We need a triple-headed SPECT scan, because we need to show the image, and the image of a triple-headed SPECT scan is this real slow movement that they use to show what's going on in the brain. Even a double-headed SPECT scan would not show what they wanted to see. And this triple-headed SPECT scan was able to show the neurotoxicity buildup in my brain. And so I had that test done, and I also had a delayed immune test done. It's a test where they prong you to see how your immune system's working. Usually, back in several years ago, I maybe 15, 20 years ago now, I'm just speculating, but they always, immunologists always used to do that test. And then all of a sudden, the prong test.
Are they injecting you with
No,
something?
basically what they're doing is they're putting this pressure into my forearm to get a reaction on my forearm. Okay.
See how your skin comes back, the color comes back,
Correct.
and the indentation, and
absolutely,
you can see if you're dehydrated.
Yes, and what's going on. And it was a test that used to be a standard practice for mainstream immunologists, but now they don't use that test anymore. Why? Well, now I know, because it gives too much information. And then they would have to go down that, I don't want to say rabbit hole, but find out, well, why isn't his immune system working? And they don't want to go there.
And that would get the boards of the insurance company pissed off, and the pharmaceutical people. And you've got these set of protocol that you got to stay in the guidelines of, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Exactly. So they had all these tests, like I said, the triple-headed SPECT and the delayed immune test. And all this was showing up that something was wrong with my immune system. Now, keep in mind, prior to that, I was going to one immunologist after another and I was telling them something's going on with my IgG, and obviously a doctor doesn't like to be told from his patient
What they think.
what they
Right.
think.
Sure. Yeah.
They want people to be dumb. Really, don't talk. You're a dog. Don't talk. So I basically said, I believe it's I need IgG, and I had one that said, well, let's see. So they did a blood test, and one of the tests that you look to see if your immune system's running or functioning properly is they run what's called your IgG subclass 1 through 4. Now I was deficient. I was running low in subclass 3. Now this is important here. The average in subclass 3 and everything with blood work, and I'm talking LabCorp and Quest, those are the big two, that the range for this particular test was 41 through 100 and something. I can't remember the top end, but 41 through something. I was in the teens, so I was certainly running deficient. So I had one doctor that I thought was going to help. Well, he kind of led me astray. And then at the last minute, it was like he dismissed me as a patient. It was extremely bizarre. So this was just prior to me going to Dallas. So I went to Dallas, and like I said, I'm telling the story to the late, great Dr. William J. Ray, who had passed away, unfortunately, in August of 2018, with his team of doctors and scientists. And he said, Joe, you were right. They were wrong. Well, at that point, all I wanted at this point, please get me on the right track. I'm very compliant. I'll jump through hoops. I want to get better and get on my life. Give me the right protocol. I hate that word protocol, even though I do say that, but that's basically it. Give me what paint the picture, and I'll do what I need to do. I'm very compliant. So what we did was he had me do a bunch. Oh, and I'm sorry. So this test, I was in the teens. Now this is how of a mafia, not just our pharmaceutical companies, but Quest and LabCorp, because we look at everything in ranges, and it's not one size fits all. And what they do is they manipulate the ranges, because if so many people in the country are now all of a sudden outside that range, they'll move the range because later to fit, because what's going on is, remember that range I just told you was 41 to something? Now that exact same range is 15. So now you have to show a much lower level. It's absolutely crazy. Now, the
level you're talking about in the number 3 phase,
yes,
what was it measuring? Do you recall?
Well, my IgG level. Well, they want to see a lot of different things. You have different subclasses. I believe it was like how your NK killer cells, how your antibodies are able to go on the attack.
That's what I was thinking. So did it have something to do with the white blood cell count or something, or?
I honestly, I don't want to speculate. I only say what I know. That's a very good question. But I do know that there's 4 classifications, and where I was having issues was my subclass 3, which were lower, and that how over the years they moved the range, which and they might say, well, the test is kind of changed. No, not so fast, because I've talked to other doctors off the record, and they say what I'm telling you, that they're doing it because more and more people are getting sick, and they want to be able to, how are they going to treat that? It's going to cost money. IgG is very expensive.
Yeah, I've been battling something right now with my getting my hormone levels. I've been adrenal fatigue. And they, the insurance companies want the blood tests. Well, my doctor did the saliva, and showed how I'm just low on everything, and that's another reason why I've been getting sick. But the insurance companies aren't going to approve any kind of hormone supplementation or testosterone or anything like that, unless the blood and I'm like low blood, but within their levels, within their range, because they keep moving the range lower and lower. We're all being affected by how our hormones are being affected too by what we've talked about.
And prior to this, I went to many endocrinologists. Something was going on. My cortisol was through the roof. My hormones were all over the map. Okay, and so that was one of the doctors that I saw, and that's another thing. It's amazing when there's certain doctors in a nice way that were mainstream that kind of gave me some good advice, kind of off the record, and they tipped me off that something was going on, but their hands were tied on how much information they could really tell me. I had to read between the lines. So when I say this was a journey, this was a journey. So anyway, so my subclass 3 was low, and I was just talking about how the ranges are manipulated through Quest and LabCorp because they have a monopoly. There's only so many places that you get your blood, and they have a database. They know everything that's going on, and that's in itself is a whole story. But anyway, so I'm there for 2.5 weeks. I have these team of doctors, and they're like, we're going to get you better. So they first implemented vitamin C and minerals. They had to, in order for me to get better, I was so toxic. Normally you could eat all the right foods and put the right minerals in and take oral supplements, but it got to the point where I had to get IV infusions, vitamin C, selenium, taurine, the whole gamut. And these are very expensive treatments. And I was going 3-4 times a week, and we're talking thousands of dollars. And I'm talking, I had to get 20 grams of IgG a week, which is in the thousands of dollars. Thousands. Now, remember I said my skill set I had to flip to use from getting homeowners approved through property loss, to use those skills to go after the insurance company to pick those up. And I was very successful with the help of some great doctors to get my vitamins and minerals picked up. Even IgG is a pain now because it's very expensive. Everything is a fight, but I was successful with getting for years these treatments picked up. And I was on a great path up until 2018. Everything was great. And that's when they pulled the rug from me, and the insurance said, we're not going to pay, even though these treatments were all deemed by my doctors, and I had a great team of them. These were all deemed medical necessity. And I'll get back to that. So now we're in 2015. I'm there. I come back home. I'm having all these treatments done, and everything's moving fairly smooth. Unfortunately, I was then in 2016 going through a divorce. So I had one thing after another. I had the loss of my father. Prior to that, my sister, a few years prior. It was just one thing after another. Then I couldn't work. So when you have a health issue and you can't work and you have a loss, I mean, I had the 5 most stressful things all happen within a very short period of time. And all your health revolves around one thing, and that's your immune system. We live and die on how strong our immune system is. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to keep stress out of the equation. If you could do that and lower your inflammation, and that's huge, lowering your inflammation, you will, and you get doing the things, like I said, getting the proper rest and eating right, you could slowly, the body is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. In the power of prayer. I mean, that's why I was able to slowly turn. I mean, I was really on death's door. If you looked at me, I lost 70 pounds. I was extremely toxic. And when I saw the late, great William J. Ray, he was able to get me back on the path at the Environmental Health Center. And I started making huge progress. But then in 2018 is when the brakes hit. And that's when my health insurance started wanting to fight. I was going through a divorce, like I said, and I had to go on Cobra Healthcare in June of 2018. And that's when the insurance company basically said, first, they thought that I was on quote unquote Medicare because I was disabled. I got my disability in 2016 because of my illness. And in June of 2018, my divorce was finalized. And because of through the divorce, I was able to go on Cobra for up to 36 months. And that's when all my treatments were still deemed medical necessity. I had United Healthcare, which is the largest insurance company in the world. And the company who I had my insurance through was HCA. HCA is the largest hospital in the country. They have over nearly 200 hospitals worldwide. They're in England. They're larger than the Cleveland Clinic. And my wife was the senior vice president of marketing. She oversaw 20 of their hospitals. So I was getting my health insurance through HCA. And a couple months into Cobra, they said that I did not, HCA and United were not the primary payer in this. HCA, that Medicare was. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So for the last 3+ years, I have cases in federal court arguing the point. Well, let it be known. Last week, when my Cobra was up in June of last year, then I had to transition to go over to Medicare. And Medicare, as most people know, they don't pay for anything. Everything's really a fight. I mean, they want one thing after another. But the issue is I would not be able to get really the same type of quote unquote health coverage. So that's why at the time I did not want to pay for two health insurances, Medicare, which is $150, $200, but I was paying out of pocket for the other insurance, $750 a month. So when this hit and I was going through all these issues, I right off the bat, when they were playing these games, I had to hire an attorney. Well, I hired an attorney in South Florida. This is, I want to say, in July of 2018. And in August of 2018, I had to abruptly come up to Ohio, and I've never been back to Florida since August of 2018. And the reason why, and I don't want to get on a tangent, but this is all setting up things for later that I would like to talk about. And they put 5G in my house, and they were told I could not have 5G. The reason why I know this, I have all the pictures to document. All I wanted was a basic landline. So I sent these pictures of what they had put into my home to an electronics warfare officer and a friend of mine. And she confirmed with one of her partners, of course, absolutely, this was 5G. And this was something that they put into my house. They took out immediately, but I could not, even after it was out of my house, because I was so sensitive, I could not set foot into my house other than a few minutes before it would severely affect my head. So in August of 2018, I came up to Ohio, and I've been up in Ohio ever since then, fighting the insurance, United Healthcare, and HCA. The first attorney that I had in South Florida that opened up the case for me, first of all, it was very hard to get. And this particular attorney, and I won't say her name, she thought that this was probably going to be quick and easy. But after several months, she kind of said, oh my gosh, I think we are going to have to file a lawsuit. She filed a lawsuit, and I believe it was late 2018. And in June, the insurance company / HCA came back and they wanted they wanted to settle with me and sign a non-disclosure. That was out of the question. But all they wanted to do was say, basically, Mr. Gardi, we're going to play nice. We're going to give you the treatments that you should have gotten all along. And as long as you don't talk about it. And I said to my attorney, first of all, I can take this offer because there's some other treatments, because what happened was there was a particular treatment that wasn't even part that was in the what they were going to agree to pay, which they, with all these treatments, were part of my plan. It wasn't like they were doing me a favor. I was colonics. And because they withheld my IgG and did all these bad things with me not getting the treatments I needed, I kept building up toxins that kept further putting infection in my body. So I lost the ability to actually have bowel movements. So my health started to deteriorate again rapidly. So I was emotionally drained, because at the beginning of 2018, I was getting a lot better. I was right there, right on the verge, and then the rug was pulled from me. And so now we're in late 2018, now we're in June of 2019. So there's an offer on the table, me to sign a non-disclosure. I don't want to take the deal. She basically, my attorney, says, well, if you don't take it, I'm going to have to walk away. And I'm like, well, then you're going to have to walk away, because there's treatments I need that I should be getting, and they cause and at this point, if it was any other thing, this I would be entitled to millions of dollars for compensatory and punitive damages. But this is what I really want to emphasize, and this is extremely, extremely, extremely important. I can't emphasize this point enough, that 75% of people out there that have health insurance, and it's through your employer, it's through ERISA. ERISA was set, our beautiful Congress made this, I believe in 73 or 74, that they have what's called preemption. And that's a key word, preemption. So you cannot go after compensatory or punitive damages. You're forced to file a lawsuit. That's after you go through all the process. You have to jump through all these hoops. Then you could file a lawsuit. You cannot file it in state court. The whole system's rigged. You have to file it in federal court. And when you file it in federal court, you can't get a jury. You have to, it's only a judge. And unfortunately, and I hate to say this, I'm not saying all, because I don't paint a broad brush, but a lot of these judges are in the pockets of huge, I'm talking big business, billion-dollar companies, because how do these people get in the positions they get? It's all a giant Ponzi scheme. If you see everything on paper and see what I've went through, all the dots are connected, unfortunately. So after I turned down this thing, it took me months to get another attorney. And keep in mind, I cannot use the cell phone and get on these devices and spend long periods of time, because then that actually hurts my health. I start to go backwards. I have to watch. Even right now, I have a device, which I'll talk about, and I have shungite in front of me to help me block out the EMFs. I was diagnosed, one of my diagnoses was with electromagnetic radiation poisoning. That was one of my diagnoses, which is unheard of in the United States.
And how did they were they able to discover that?
That particular thing, I guess, with the radiation level in my body. But I do have that diagnosis, which I'll bring and share to you. I have the paper.
Because I'm just curious, how you would find out that you had that, because that might be something that I think from my time in the military.
We all
that
have
I-
it to some degree,
you
and
know,
that's
you
it.
know.
We all
More sensitive than others.
Yeah.
more people are a lot more
Yeah.
sensitive to others.
Would they do muscle tests for it?
Oh,
Would they put
I've
you
had
on the
muscle
phone
tests.
and-
I've had so many
Yeah.
different things. One of the big things that I thought that contributed to my illness was being on the cell phone for business.
Yes.
But and I do believe that was a factor, but going reverse engineering everything, I believe it's stemmed from like 2008, 2009 from the shots that I got. So now we're at, this attorney walks away. So this was in the summer, maybe fall of 2019. So for months, you would think that I would have attorney up wanting to take my case. No, extremely difficult. Why? Because ERISA Health, it's a very small niche of attorneys that specialize in ERISA law. It's kind of like aviation law. It's a very, very highly specialized field. And the people that do specialize it are on the other team, the large corporations, large. Unless you're extremely wealthy and have the money to be able to pay for these type of attorneys, and you're on the other side, you're pretty much out of luck. Well, after months, I was able to get an attorney to represent me. And won't say any names. She was a Harvard grad, a big law firm out in New York. She had cases in front of the United States Supreme Court. So I was like, great. And she took it pro bono.
Wow.
She took it pro bono. This was in March of 2020. But she said that she could probably, she didn't make any promises, but she thought that she could help, but it was going to be limited of what she could do. More than anything, all I wanted, money was going to be great because I've cost hundreds of thousands of dollars what they have cost me. But I just want to get better.
Mm-hmm.
I can make my own money. The Lord's given me a lot of talent to be able to make in money and do what I need to do. I just want my health and get my health. That was number one priority. Once your health's gone, nobody knows. And, and also being sick though has also given me a lot more wisdom, and it's gotten me a lot closer to the Lord. Amen to that.
Yeah.
So I had this attorney from Harvard, and everything was moving, and she thought could get me probably close to a barely maybe a 6-figure settlement and get me back on track with my insurance. But they were still in the position, their stance was that they were the primary payer. That Medicare was the primary payer, they were secondary, and that I wasn't entitled to these treatments and whatnot. And they fought me on this for 3 years. And all of a sudden, I said to my attorney, well, I know Medicare's not the primary payer. First of all, usually one of the criteria is if you're a large company, which HCA is, or the largest healthcare provider, and when they figure the quote unquote large, that's usually over 100 employees. Okay. And, but their attitude was they weren't the primary payer. So what this did was delayed many, many treatments. And I couldn't afford to pay for all these copays. Copays add up. They're very expensive. And I was going to getting treatments multiple times a week. I would get up in the morning and not come home till 6 or 7 at night. From the time I was doing my IV infusion to my clonics and everything, it was a full-time job because all I wanted to do was get better. Well, that rug was basically pulled and then somewhat delayed for the last 3 years. So there was a settlement on the table, but there again, I told my attorney, no, I don't want to do it, because what happened was we were now in litigation, and the litigation, we were in the discovery phase, and discovery phase from summer 2018 when I went on Cobra till March of 2021. March of 2021. Well, I was still on Cobra for many months after, and I was up in Ohio. I said, at this point, and keep in mind now, I came up to Ohio thinking that I was only going to be up here a matter of months, figure something out, go back to Florida. But I was never able to do that because they still were playing games and my health was still not well enough to go back to Ohio because of my treatments being severely delayed and halted. So my attorney finally came to realize that she believed that HCA was the primary payer, and she at that point, and all my speculation was right. And I said, she had said, well, you should maybe look for an Ohio attorney as well. And I did. I was in the process. So I got an Ohio attorney. And this attorney was a friend of my grandfather's. He got his degree from Yale University. So I got some people that were pretty bright individuals, but they knew that I was I could read through the tea leaves. The deck was stacked against me, what I was going up against. And of course, they also know these companies that I'm going up have unlimited resources.
Sure.
Unlimited resources. Yeah. So
they could just take their time.
So he did not. He did. His expertise was not in ERISA law, but he was a litigator. But he kind of worked with the attorney, the woman attorney from New York, and he filed a lawsuit in Ohio. And just within the last month or two, I wanted to move the Florida case up to Ohio. And why I'm telling this story is because this could affect anybody, absolutely anybody. And most people that would be in a position would be dead. And by the way, if I die tomorrow, this case goes away.
Yeah.
Okay. Goes away. And that's one of the reasons why I would never, and I'm speaking today, I would never sign a non-disclosure. Money can't buy me. I don't care what figure. If it's an 8-figure settlement, no way. Which I won't get I'll be lucky if I get a small 6-figure settlement. And on that note, we're getting the process, which it was supposed to be done on Friday. We are going to be filing another suit in state court against and I don't want to get ahead of myself. I'm jumping ahead here, but this is so important. I want to make sure all the facts are on the table. We're filing a case in state court against the pharmaceutical company, the pharmaceutical company. And this is another scheme. The insurance industry are buying up all the, the pharmacies. They're buying up the pharmacies. HCA they bought Diplomat, and Diplomat's a pharmacy, and now they owned, I'm kind of my train of thought here. Could you think of any of the
Walgreens?
No,
CVS.
It'll come to me. But anyway, they're buying it up, and so they want to monopolize everything. When you can control one thing, then you could get all the prices, and and I'll get back to that. So anyway, we're going to be filing a lawsuit in state court against the pharmacy for basically disregard of my well-being. I needed a bunch of treatments where they halted, and they also kept my my ability to get better. And why we're filing it against them, they don't have the same protection under ERISA, you see, that the insurance company does. So we believe that we'll be able to make a lot of progress, because that key word that everybody needs to look into is preemption. It basically stacks the whole deck against you. So now we have a case now filed in Florida and Ohio, but the Ohio attorney in federal court, everything to this point has been ruled against me. because everything's stacked. And they moved my Ohio case, which should have never happened, down to Florida. So right now, Florida has everything in terms of in federal court. So right now, we're trying to have a settlement in regards to the Ohio and Florida. And hopefully we should know something in the next week or two. But my hands are tied because I'm probably going to be forced into a settlement. But at the end of the day, all I would really like is to get them to repeat for the last 3 years the treatments that I should have gotten. And I'll give you an example. And this is the big point I want to make here. Just last week, I got a paper which I needed to have HCA fill out, that I needed a sign in to fill out, and it had to go to Medicare. Well, in that paper, it was number 6. It said, if you're whoever the primary payer is, and if you're disabled, we need the company to fill out when I started and when I finished. Well, lo and behold, number 6 was filled out. HCA is admitting that from 2011 through June of 2021, that HCA was the primary payer in their own writing. Well, the last 3 years, their position. Had to go to Cobra. I was on Cobra, but they were making the position they weren't the primary.
But now you got the smoking gun, basically.
I have this exactly. I have the smoking gun, and it took 3 years, and I just handed that over this last week to my attorneys, and I don't want to get
copies.
Yes, of course. I want my stress level. I have to, like I said, stress is. I can't emphasize this enough. When you're dealing with your immune system, how important your stress level is. You have to, because you could be doing all these beautiful treatments, but if you're constantly stressed out, your immune system, it's a huge factor.
Yeah.
So all these things, all these hoops that I had to jump through, I had to have to basically be in like 2 bodies. I had to detach and have to de-stress myself. And I did a lot of meditation along the way and a lot of breathing techniques. So I was able to give this paper to my attorneys. Hopefully we'll come to get some type of settlement, and hopefully we'll be able to make better headway in terms of going after compensatory or punitive damages, because how it works in federal court, you cannot go after compensatory or punitive damages. You can only go after treatments and get reimbursed basically for treatments that you had already paid for. Well, think about this. If my treatments are $30,000 a month, how many people could afford to pay for those treatments up front and wait 2 or 3 years to get paid?
Yeah.
Do you know, this is what I'm trying to say.
1%.
The game is rigged.
Yeah, sure.
The game is rigged. Every American, if every American knew what I knew, not just with that alone, they would be marching on Washington, D.C. as we speak.
There'd be a run on tar and chicken feathers.
And I pray to God that what's happening right now, and there again, I'm getting off topic, but this is what I believe in my whole heart, that what's going on in Quebec, Canada, will spill over and go from California at the beginning of March over to Washington, D.C., and we need to get millions of people, because this is all about us. Our rights are being trampled upon. We have already socialized medicine. I'm exposing it firsthand of how it's rigged. And when you really need these treatments, how medical necessity treatments. Now think about this. I have the best doctors. First of all, it's almost impossible to have the doctors I have, because most doctors will not stick up for you. That's a whole nother issue. 20 or 30 years ago, and I don't want to paint a broad brush, but a lot of our doctors have lost their spine because they don't want to be ostracized by the insurance community. They don't. They don't want to go down that road. They want to hear what you have, the 10 minutes with you, and that's it. And one size fits all, and here's your magic pill, and that's it. Well, medicine's a lot more than that. a lot more than that. There's a whole nother side of medicine that that I'm talking about today that people need to know. People need to know. And
then if you're a doctor that does have a spine, heaven forbid you're disappeared or you've got a suicide or you know what I mean? I mean, we had a Charmaine on a while ago, and it's funny. She started her whole. She's from a family of people that own health food stores and have been practicing natural medicine for 40 years. And she went down to Florida for medical school. She ended up hooking up with this doctor down there. I keep forgetting his name, but he was treating AIDS patients with ozone and curing them, for however much it costs for a machine and a 110 outlet to run it on. And they ran his ass out of the country.
Now, if I get a little emotional, it's not because I'm not strong. I am strong, but I've been through a lot. And I've had many people that have helped me tremendously, doctors that are no longer here, that have been taken out. And I will talk about that in a minute. I get my composure here. But like what he said, around 2012, 13, 14, a lot of our holistic doctors that would speak out and were really giving back and helping people. It is amazing how many of these doctors are no longer here. But even that, I don't know if you're aware of this, since the late 90s, this is very important here. So we have holistic doctors that have been taken out in the last 8, 10, 12 years. Mm-hmm. But if you go back to the 90s, this is important, how many microbiologists, not any microbiologists, the top in their field that specialized in bio warfare.
Yeah.
And why that's so key is because these are the doctors that would be sounding the alarm today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you could Google this list. I mean, you can't make the story up.
Yeah.
So what I do is I reverse engineer everything. There's certain things that if you would have told me just 10, 15, I would have thought you were crazy and nuts, but I have a lot of pieces to the puzzle and I'm firsthand proof. Mm-hmm. I'm living proof of what's going on. So now you have microbiologists for the last 20 years. Not just any microbiologists, the top in their field and specialized in biowarfare. And now, I don't know, 13, 14, a whole slew of doctors that were being taken out. Now,
was that group of doctors, I don't want to get off topic, was that group of doctors, were they, if I can remember correctly, they were exposing some type of protein or something found in most common vaccines that were causing cancer or something, or
some of them were absolutely, and they were taken out. Yes,
right.
Yeah, that's.
And they were sharing, and it was all the ones that were sharing the information. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, what actually even before I got sick, one book that I read, and I don't want to mention this book, that kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things, and this was just pre me getting ill, was The Creature from Jekyll Island. Mm-hmm. I actually talked on the phone with the author. I can't think of his name offhand.
Griffin.
Yes. Did he pass away?
Griffin. I don't know.
I talked to him. I want to say 2014 or 15 after I was sick. Whoa. But I read the book prior to I was sick. And we talked about B17 because prior to that, I was taking mass quantities of B17. And I really believe that.
Was that a type of B vitamin?
Oh, that's
found in a B complex.
Well, it's apricot seed.
It
helps against cancer.
Sure. Yeah. I've heard a lot about apricots.
And it's banned here in the United States. So I was getting it from Canada or Mexico. Mm-hmm. And I was actually getting an IV form too here. Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother story, but it helped. So back to what we were saying about these doctors. In 2014, and I'm sorry to go back, but this is important here, I was able to come in contact with a gentleman that had a great soul. He's no longer with us. He died late January of last year. His name's Michael Chapola. He was on the George Norrie Coast to Coast. I know I've talked to George on many times. And Michael Chapola was interviewed in September of 2012. I spoke with him in June of 2014. And what he was telling me, I was kind of listening, kind of like I was listening to what he had to say, but they were saying that it was saying it was hard. I was sick. All I wanted to do was get better. But I will tell you this, every word that he came out of his mouth, and everything he told me to do had 100% truth behind it. The man was amazing. And I developed a relationship. I never met him. I consider him a friend, never met him, but talked to him countless times over the phone. Well, my gift, I believe, and one of the reasons why I believe that the Lord still has me here is I'm able to get people together, the right people at the right time. And for the longest time, I wouldn't say the longest time, for months, I was trying to get Michael Chapola, and this guy is brilliant. He thinks like he is all about Tesla technologies, physicist. He was ex-military, top security clearance. And he came down with what was called Morgellons in 2004. And he had a tremendous electrical background. I mean, this guy was brilliant. One of the smart, and I've talked to some very brilliant people. This guy was right up there. Well, I was trying to get him to talk to Dr. Alfonso Manzo, who I would like to get eventually on your show.
Okay.
And
yeah.
he's the foremost. I don't like the word expert because his expertise is in nanotechnology.
Yeah.
And what's going on and how the components of what's going on in the quote unquote vaccine, which is not a vaccine, and I want to talk about that too. It's an inoculation.
We've been going like over an hour right now, so
but you're doing great.
Okay. So anyway, I finally was able to get them to talk. I introduced them, got them to talk. They were sharing notes. Monzo and Michael Chapola. Well, sure enough, he got a device. Oh, he was trying to eventually. He wanted me. He had just pioneered this device, and that you would lay in, and it's on YouTube, and he would get you in, and it would take out the nanotechnology. You would lay into it. He also had this other device, which was very helpful, but it would be only temporary, that it would knock the nano out, and he calls it the nano killer. And it
kind of like an EMF.
Yeah,
maybe.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like it would short circuit the stuff.
Yeah.
Like what I'm wearing. I have these magnets that I wear here that help short circuit, and because it's the stuff, the nano, it's in your blood, and it kind of gives me
it always
relief.
will pass through the wrist.
Exactly. Exactly. So basically, I got them to talk. He ordered a device, and they were going to, they hit it off. They hit it off. Well, all of a sudden, now we're in late January of last year. He's trying to get a hold of him. He's like, Joe, have you talked to Michael? And I'm like, no, I know he's busy. I'm sure he'll get with you, And so I was like, I tried to get a hold of him. I couldn't. And then I'll never forget, I think it was a Friday or Saturday. It was like, I don't know, late January or early February of a year ago, almost to the day. He gives me he gets an email. He goes, you won't believe this, but he's dead. He died. And I was crying because I know the conversations we had. He said that if he gets taken, he'll probably be taken out.
Yeah.
And that, he did. I mean, people were coming all over the country, not all over the country, all over the world to see him because he just had gotten this device just months prior. Well, this is what happened. This is what I know to be fact. Just prior to his death, his equipment went on the Ritz. It was just prior to a weekend, and he had several people that they came in from out of the country to see him
to use the
equipment. His equipment just went on the Ritz. Well, he believed that something had gotten hit, so he was going to have to fix it. Well, his girlfriend and him went out to eat, and then all of a sudden became deathly ill. And from what I understand, and this is coming from Dr. Manzo, and I don't know who he spoke with to get this information, but he believed that they were poisoned because the girlfriend, which he didn't believe in going to a hospital. He thought he could treat himself because he was that smart. He didn't go. She went. She recovered from the best of my
Oh,
knowledge.
they both
and he
were poisoned.
Yeah, and he died.
Mm.
And I keep saying every time I see Dr. Monzo, I said, I see when I tell you, you got to act. You got to act. And he goes, I know. And it gets me very emotional because Dr. Monzo, would have brought that machine. Now that machine was not in this country. He was working on the other side of Texas in Mexico because the feds, they would have came in and confiscated.
Well, you hear years ago, many, even I'm sure today, but a lot of people would go to Mexico to get cancer treatment stuff instead of going this country.
Well, he knew that he would be shut down.
Yeah.
Dr. Monzo he just wants to give. I go, what have you? He goes, I would have had that machine up here in a heartbeat, just knowing that it could help people, because he would have gotten the best attorneys. And actually, there's an attorney that's beaten the FDA multiple times. He probably would have. I can't think of the guy's name, but he has a book called The Authoritarians. He probably would have gotten him. He's taken the FDA down, which is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
But it's called The Authoritarians. Real good guy. But anyway, so Dr. Monzo said, I'm so sorry, Joe, I will act. We have a very, very good relationship. And he's currently treating me, and he's an expert when it comes to nanotechnology. So I was devastated. I mean, this guy I knew for 7 or 8 years. I'll never forget the first words. It was raining. It was during the week. This is June of 2014. I pull over. He calls me back. Our very first conversation. This is Michael Chapala. And he's like, well, tell me a little bit. So I'm off on the side of the road. It's pouring down rain. I'm going to an IV. Everything's falling apart on me. He's like, it'll be okay. This is words. The way he was just so reassuring. He's like, well, right now, he goes, do you have any metal on you? He goes, take all that off. Do you have any change in your pocket? Get rid of all that. And I used to wear a nice gold thing, a watch, a very nice watch. And so I got rid of all that stuff and not had anything. And sure enough, boom, that was the first thing that he told me to do. And I got some type of relief. I'm like, this guy knows something. Mm-hmm. So he started gaining credibility with me. And that's everything it is. To me, everything is credibility. And it's a whole nother thing. Look how many of our so-called experts, like we were talking about, saying follow the science, we're the experts, and they send you down a rabbit hole, and you're in a way worse position. Don't know they don't know science from anything, and these are our elected leaders and these doctors
and appointed.
It's absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is, unfortunately, he passed away, but everything that he said was 100% spot on and accurate. I was able to at least get him to talk to Dr. Monzo. He did get one of the devices. It wasn't the main device that he finally was able to pioneer, but this guy was brilliant. And Dr. Monzo, now when I say you need to act, not that he didn't so much before.
Well, it was probably a sobering moment for him.
It was. Yeah. It was. Yeah. He couldn't believe. And I said, Dr. Monzo, and these people, and but I'm constantly in prayer for Dr. Monzo, because I'm concerned for him, concerned for a lot of people, but we can't live in fear. And soon as I take the fear and the anxiety and all that out of the equation, oh my gosh, I'm a whole new person, because I know where I'm going. But I believe the Lord's keeping me here to be able to give back and share my experience and give the wisdom that he's given me. And like I said, I don't know if I brought that box up in the back. Did I? Did I mention?
Well, no, you didn't bring up the VSG.
The VSG. It's called a VitaSet generator.
Here, I'll hold it up for the camera if you don't mind.
Sure. And you let me know when whatever. And
yeah, I mean,
you guys see that? Is our virtual audience viewing that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a
the device.
Yes. So basically, that's not any device. That's the device that was designed by a physicist who, at one time, this was this technology was highly classified, And the physicist that invented it worked for NASA. Actually, when it first went on the market, he got a knock on the door by the FBI and said, "Where did you get this?" He goes, "I invented it. I worked for NASA." Basically, bug off.
Yeah.
And they left him alone. These
But
stories
now people can purchase.
they could purchase it,
Okay.
but this device, it cost me a shade under $700, and there's a lot of.
Can you just go home, plug it in, put it in your living dining room,
Yes,
and,
yes.
and just keep it around you to help with your aura?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, and
Let me briefly
block
explain.
frequencies.
There's other generators, but it's everything. It's like vitamins. No two things are created equal. This particular thing emits 5 major frequencies. It's called Schumann, and this is important. People should Google this. Schumann resonance.
Mhm.
The same 5 frequencies that this emits, your brain emits, okay? The earth emits. That's no coincidence.
Is your heart emitting one of those as well?
Well, actually, your heart is emitting. Your heart, in terms of electromagnetic frequency, is 5,000 times more sensitive, believe it or not, than the brain.
Mm-hmm.
5,000.
Well, they call the heart the first brain.
Exactly. Yeah. And then
and it's because that's where you start off when you're born. It's your heart. When your egg fertilizes, after a certain amount of division, it starts making a big heart, which is where the brain is at first. Go on.
That's so true. And then your gut. They call the gut the second brain.
That's
exactly.
Right,
and the whole body's so interconnected. But anyway, this particular device emits 5 main frequencies. Most other things on the market are junk.
When I first heard of the Schumann frequency, it was described to me as the frequency of the earth. And they got into like pole shift. They said if it starts speeding up or if it starts slowing down and it stops, then there might be a pole shift or something like that. But go on. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You could stop anytime because it actually helps me quite a bit. It gets my thoughts back together again. So anyway, these 5 frequency, the physicist he's a good friend of Dr. Monzo's. Dr. Monzo said that this might be able to help you, and sure enough, it doesn't give me total 100% protection, but it does help me from all these other bad frequencies that could do detrimental harm to your health. Because what's happening with these frequencies, and I could talk hours about this, these devices are putting our cells in what's called reverse spin rotation.
Right.
Reverse spin rotation.
That could be. Go ahead. I'll think of it in a second.
So
open and closed cells.
You want all cells that go in reverse spin rotation eventually will cause cancer.
That's right.
Your all cells spin in clockwise rotation.
And that's the way natural electric currents will flow.
And that's why
right.
shungite is very, very important. That will help block out EMF and give you EMF protection. Unfortunately, what we are dealing with now is 5G. And the people say that there's solutions, and I talk to the best of them. Right now, 5G, period, was invented as a weapon, period. It was brought on as a weapon. There's no need for 5G. We don't need things any faster than they already are. I mean, 6G, that's absolute. All this is doing, our body cannot handle this. Cannot handle. There's no other person that could speak on this better than I can, than Cyrus Parsa and a good, I call him a friend, Matt Landman. He's an activist in California. His expertise is on 5G and what's going on with 5G. But people believe that there's something with the coronavirus and the 5G and how it doesn't make it or anything like that. But what happens is why there's an interconnection is that when we have this virus in us, okay, our immune system, and this is one, I want to make sure I get this point in at least today. This is extremely, extremely important. Extremely important. I actually was on George Norrie the other night, and I explained this. I asked pharmacist Ben Fuchs, I said, I would like to be able to explain something and put it into lay terms. I believe the Lord's given me a gift to explain so the average person can understand, because usually when doctors talk, it loses most people. And I said, Ben, pharmacist Ben, after I say what I am about to say, I would like you to comment and tell me if you agree with what I have to say. So I said this. I said, after people get, quote, the shot, which is not a vaccine, it's an inoculation, okay? So there's a lot of disinformation, and I can't stand the disinformation that our elected officials and even doctors are saying it's a vaccine. It's not. When people take the jab or the shot, you're putting in toxins into your body, okay? Once it gets into your body, what it's supposed to do, okay, is it's supposed to it's called make primary antibodies. It's the mRNA, primary antibodies that will go in and take out the pathogen, and that's called primary antibodies. Our body, our immune system makes non-primary antibodies. Our body makes non-primary antibodies. So if it sees anything, it's going to go in and destroy them. Now, what happens is, by getting the shot and getting it over and over, what you're doing is breaking down your own immune system. You're ruining, you're creating havoc. You're destroying your own immune system.
So, Joe, so when you say primary antibodies, that's a specific antibody for one specific thing. When you say non-primary antibodies, just check me. Your body's making a host of different antibodies for a host of whatever.
Exactly.
And now you're not able to make those host of non-primary antibodies for whatever.
Yes.
You're stuck with that one antibody.
Correct.
Yeah.
God made us perfect.
Yes.
But what happens is, this is why we're creating a monster. Literally, we are creating a monster. Is that primary antibody that was supposedly effective for a short period of time through that mutation will then go in and block out our own non-primary antibodies. And what that does is it breaks down our immune system. Now, you hear this word, people have to these are the key definition people need to know. They need to know the word immune system and know what it is, and they need to know what viral load means. Now, what happens is when we get infection, we have what's called the viral load. Our immune system will break down a viral load. For instance, my IgG, actually, it was tainted. That's another, we won't even go there, but it was tainted with hepatitis C. I contracted hepatitis C through my IgG and got through that. They were not able to detect. I was able to, by taking vitamin C, I was able to, and this is all relative, I was able to get where you cannot detect the hepatitis C through a viral load count because of what I was doing. And then once they pulled my treatments and I couldn't get what I needed, the viral load shot up. Well, what 5G does is it puts you in a fight or flight. It causes immune system. Yeah. Our immune system, our nervous system goes haywire. Okay. And it's like we're a deer in headlights.
Is that the cytokine storm?
Yeah, inflammation. It's absolutely correct. Yeah. The cytokine storm. So what happens is, so your non-primaries are built out. Your body doesn't know how to react. You're under 5G, and you go through what's called intercellular deprivation, where your cells are not taking in oxygen, and it could drop you like that. Your heart, you see
these soccer players that run around their whole life, professional soccer players just passing out on the field.
This guy's great because he leads me
that's why I wanted to hear.
He leads me into exactly what I want to say next. Months ago, I was telling my nurse that would come in and give me my hydration. She's on record. I don't have a crystal ball. I said, how many professional athletes first were going to come down with many type of soft soft injuries. Why is that? Because we are made up of billions and billions of cells. We have what's called intercellular communication,
And
the cells can't communicate.
the good
and
bacteria,
we cause,
the bad
but
bacteria.
we cause all
Yep.
these types of illnesses, even injuries that the average that are in record number. Like we have a lot of hamstring pulls, but more like Achilles tendons tears, things that are not in abundance now that are because there's lack of blood flow and oxygen deprivation.
Right.
So I said, first, you're going to see a crazy number of injuries. Sure enough, she's like, you're right. There's, I go, look. So I'm on record for that. Then I said, what's going to happen next? All these athletes, not just football players, all,
soccer
people, most
cricket.
of them are highly vaccinated. They all had the
inoculated.
Booster.
Yes.
Yeah, they had the
highly inoculated.
Yeah, they had the booster.
Yeah.
Okay. What's going to happen then? Remember, they said many, many times, our experts, that if you got the shot, you got the booster, you're not going to get the virus, right? We were told that. You can't make this stuff up. I'm like, what the heck? And these are our experts. No, obviously we know that's not true, right? So they're coming down with getting this multiple times. Now I'm going to make another prediction, and I pray to God I'm wrong. I don't want to come back and say
you don't want to
right.
be right about.
I
this
don't want to
stuff.
be right. But the next thing is
common sense.
I pray to
dictates.
God that they don't go to the 4th or the 5th shot, but that their plans are to do that. And you could, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, Dr. Manzo will agree to this. And you're already seeing it in Europe. But I've said months ago this was going to happen. The more they push and they go up in number, it just keeps wrecking the immune system. You're going to see the myocarditis and people of getting severely ill, having major problems, and even death. And you're seeing that with tennis players right now in Australia and soccer players. And you're going to see more and more of our athletes on the basketball court and on the football field next football season, and even baseball. Baseball have serious injury, and people have to wake up and know what's going on. This is ruining your immune system, ruining it.
Professionals, alternative doctors are calling it VAIDS. Vaccine acquired immune deficiency syndrome.
Yes. And another thing that I would like to briefly say is the masks are absolutely crazy, absolutely insane that you wear a mask. 98% of the people that wear masks are junk. You're actually creating more CO2. You're breathing this in. It's causing major problems. It makes your blood pressure go up through the roof. Okay. And it's going to cause serious issues for our children. You cannot wear these masks 6 to 8 hours a day. First of all, you shouldn't even have them on for 2 minutes. The N95s if you have it for a very short period of time, it could be slightly effective. But the problem, even with that, people will touch their face, so it's really no good. I mean, I know of a good mask, but the bottom line, they do no good. And if you did, if you, as long as you wore it right and was on for a very short period of time, you could have some benefit, small, but that's for a very short period of time and how quality of the mask. But you cannot have a mask on for hours. That's absolutely insane. And now, I don't know if you know this, but a study just came out from Johns Hopkins. Are you aware of this study? Johns Hopkins is saying that all these lockdowns were, and no media picked up on this. And that's unbelievable. I mean,
so the lockdowns didn't have any benefit whatsoever.
Absolutely, and this was
it did more harm than good.
This was a study from Johns Hopkins. It just came out.
Suicide rate went up in teens, and people being isolated, drug use, relapses. I'm in recovery. I know so many people that relapse because of the isolation. All the lockdowns did more harm than good.
So why is this being done? And we could talk about that for another time, but it has to do with the Great Reset.
Yep. Liquidation of the
liquidation
nations.
And
Yep.
what's really going on behind the scenes, which Peter Schweitzer, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He just came out with a great book, but I can't think of it offhand. It's that how corrupt our politicians are with the communists. It's all about the Marxism and socialism, and they are
depopulation.
Exactly. And this is what you cannot make this up. But I have the science. We have the science. I mean, I could get the best doctors and the scientists that say this. They will go on the record, but these people are being drowned out because mainstream medicine, mainstream media controls everything.
And Pfizer's got their ads on Channel 3 News, and they're not going to knock their biggest advertisement.
This goes
people,
back. This real quick. This goes back to the industrial military complex from what Eisenhower
warned
said.
Us about it.
Warned us about what the Kennedy said in one of his speeches about secret societies. This is all very important. And to get where my strength comes from is a speech that Ronald Reagan gave and regarding the pledge. And you Google this, and this is where I get my strength from my wisdom from my Lord. I read Psalms 91, and I suit up every day with Ephesians 6:10-18, the armor of God. That's the only way I make it through. And because this is not just a physical attack, we're also dealing with spiritual.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody would have said this to me 10 years ago, I would say lock the person up. But what I've been through, the people that I've been able to talk, I connect all the dots. That's why they want me gone. First, what they did was try to taint my IgG. Then they tried to put 5G into my home. Then they tried to pull all my medical treatments from me that knew that I was getting better because I could talk and I could save a lot of people. I have the
You can organize these people.
I have the template to take the insurance companies down and get them to pay for what they should, as long as we have doctors that are willing to fight through medical necessity. But I could prove how the game is rigged, like we were talking about. So I'm going to go and reverse engineering, but it's all coming back to form that how under ERISA, how the game is rigged, how I could prove that, and how we have to change laws. And I believe for the first time, I have so much faith and hope since maybe late last year that more and more people are waking up. Another great pastor, his name's Pastor Rodney Brown. I don't know if you're familiar with him, of Tampa, Florida. He was arrested, but he speaks the truth, and he calls it the Great Awakening. He's very good friends with Donald Trump. And my pastor, his name's Evett, and these people just give me the strength to keep fighting the good fight, suiting up every day, telling my story. I feel like I have a purpose, but it's called The Pledge, and it was a speech by Ronald Reagan. Read it, and it basically the short of the gist of it is that I take it upon myself if everything depended on me alone, and that keeps me going. It keeps my drive, keeps me focused. Because I don't want anybody to have to go through everything, and I don't want anybody to be called crazy, because I know how I got looked at on many occasions, and I had many people tell me now, well, how do you feel to be vindicated? Maybe at one time I'm like, okay, the some of the things, but I don't care. I just want to be able to give back to the best of my ability and keep going and fighting for a purpose.
Amen.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, I know things are changing. You know, when you have all this diabolical shit in everybody's face, you know, I don't know if I told you this, Bill, but years ago, I was working down in the flats, and it was after hours, and I went to my buddy's bar that he managed after hours, and I was sitting there having a few beers and hanging out with these jock dudes, and I started explaining the difference between a Federal Reserve note and lawful constitutional money. Well, the next thing you know, I was on my bike. I lived downtown, so I would ride my bike to work. I didn't have a car back then. And so, they destroyed my bike. And, it got to the point over the years, where I just wouldn't talk about stuff because I was just sick and tired of dealing with people that just couldn't.
They can't wrap their head around it. The cognitive dissonance, and then they take it out on you.
You can talk to anybody about just about anything nowadays, and you've got an ear that may listen, and you have eyes.
Yeah,
that
more
may see.
people are actually willing to listen now
because it's so in our face. It's undeniable, and it's it's devilish.
I believe everybody has a different timetable of waking up, and I think you can't. I have this quote: "If they could get you to believe the absurdity, and every day." Even I can't believe how much more absurd this is getting. If they could get you to believe the absurdity, they could get you to commit atrocities.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now think about that. If they could get you to admit or believe this, they will get you to commit atrocities.
Yeah.
And that, my friends, this parallel that we've been going down is very eerily similar to the 1930s. And I feel like I'm pretty astute with history and following in with these things that we're doing now that I think the Germans were doing in the 30s with experiments. And when we're putting back these quote unquote vaccines, what are inoculations. And by the way, on this note, all this was already in the making. They signed in 2005 what's called the 2005 PrEP Act, which gave complete immunity to all these pharmaceutical companies. So God forbid you get sick, who's going to take care of you? And think about this. Think of how many drugs that the FDA has approved from the pharmaceutical company that were taken off the market that are known to cause cancer. And this thing was deemed experimental. But think about this. This wasn't something that just happened. They've been developing this mRNA for 30 plus years. 30 years. So this wasn't something that was totally all newly concocted. This was all arranged. This was all on their timetable. Remember what Bill Gates said. He said months before the pandemic that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
You think all these people had a crystal ball?
And he hosted that seminar thing in 2019, just months before the whole COVID thing started.
Exactly.
What was that? The beta test that they did with the computer and showed what would happen and stuff. And And then another thing, you would think that most people would be wise to somebody like Bill Gates by now. I mean, the guy's been talking population control for how long?
Yeah, it's in his family.
They just jump on the
dad was a part,
and he's
one of the founders of
in India,
Planned Parenthood.
He can't even set foot in those countries.
Yeah. So, real quick, Joe, because we almost on 2 hours, and but before we get ready to wrap up, you were going to mention some of the vitamins and supplements and whatever protocols that you take that you recommend.
Absolutely.
Help.
One is I'll talk about oral supplements. One is NAC, N-acetylcysteine. I said that was the precursor to glutathione and how important glutathione is. Basically, it gives you unbelievable lung protection. And what happens is there was a remember where I believe I was guinea pig from an immunologist that gave me my issues. There was a test that I didn't fully look at till several years later that showed my pneumonial titers were low. I had breathing problems, COPD. This was a blood test that was taken in 2009. Well, it just so happened the Lord gave me the wisdom. I just started taking it for random, and I knew something, and it was working, and it was NAC. All my numbers were ridiculous. I reversed them all, and doctors were baffled.
You mentioned glutathione. Can't you just take straight glutathione or reduced L-glutathione? because I've taken that before.
Yeah, but the problem
you want your body to make it.
You want your body to make it, but what happens is, this is the problem. When your body becomes so toxic, your liver is not running properly. Your liver is not working properly, and it doesn't produce the glutathione, which hits the brain and detoxes the brain. We have our lymphatic system that you need to run properly, and your glymphatic, which was supposedly newly discovered just several years ago, which was a bunch of crock. I don't believe that. But your glymphatic, when you sleep, your body drains and gets the toxins out of your brain. And so it's the glutathione. But glutathione, it does not work well pill form. It's almost a waste of money. There's patches that you could get, but the best is IV infusion glutathione. But the NAC supplement, those work extremely well.
My doctor Frackleton, my heavy metal doctor, used to always say you're only as old as your liver.
That's right. It's the filter of the body.
Yeah.
You're going to go.
And it makes stem cells, right? It makes cells for this and that and this and that.
Well, your bone marrow makes the stem.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it does everything. But what happens is, that's another thing. When you take on all this radiation, your bone marrow, and it goes to the bone, everything's suppressed and you can't function properly. And that's why you have to go through and take extreme measures like IV infusion. And that's what I had to do. But let me wrap up here and say these treatments. So NAC, you could get glutathione, but there's patches you could get. LifeWave, I believe, makes a good product, and I'm just throwing out. I take a lot of Vitamin Shopper Life Extension products. Very extremely important is another great supplement is turmeric.
Yeah.
Okay. What is inflammation? And for your body to work properly, you have to lower your inflammation.
Right.
And then your body could see what's going on and get to the root of the problem. So
I have a friend years ago, he's still my friend, but years ago he'd always tell me inflammation is the precursor to all disease, or you probably got a problem, you get inflammation, and that's going to precursor to everything else. And
then vitamin C. But if you take vitamin C, you want to get liposomal vitamin C, not just any vitamin C. Well, vitamin C, if you can get IV infusion, it's worth the money. But you want to take vitamin C liposomal because that bypasses in the gut and actually gets it into the blood. Everything's about getting it into the bloodstream.
Life is in the blood. Spirit's in the blood.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's right.
And,
blood of Jesus.
And that's another thing. It's like, hey, man, don't you think if the devil had a plan, he would go after your blood? I mean, if your spirit and your life is in the blood, I mean.
Well, this is what I believe. I believe that they're after the soul.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a whole nother animal. We could go down another time, but when it comes to CERN and what's going on, and Dr. Manzo could go through portals. There's a lot of things going on that would blow your mind.
No, I've spent a lot of time researching CERN.
Yeah. But let me so those supplements. So we got turmeric, zinc, vitamin C, and zinc. A lot of the things that I'm sure a lot of the audience have heard, I highly recommend. Ivermectin. Oh, that's another thing. I have so many documentations. I had worms coming out of me that were longer than 3 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, I have pictures.
What was that due to? What made them come out? What did you do to make them?
What did I do? Well, colonics, but there was and there's different I don't like the word protocol, but different things that we could discuss at another. I mean, just that's a whole take me, but things but there again, mainstream medicine, you could have things right there in their face, and the labs are a joke.
They can't. They
won't see it. Yeah. Now, even it's right there, it's moving. They can't see it.
I have a friend that did turpentine.
It works.
Yeah.
Most people, oh my God, you're putting poison in your body. No,
well, that's what they did 100 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Doctors would tell you they put a little bit of bait there by putting good honey there, and it helps with the turpentine. Other things, zinc, hydrocortisone, ivermectin, depending on what you're dealing with this thing, but ivermectin very much works. Yeah. Because it's you're
good luck getting it now.
What's that?
Good luck getting it now.
Oh, we could get it. It's good sources, but
okay, good.
Yeah. But some of the stuff is hard, and it's getting harder. You think that
And
things
that's
are
a
getting
shame.
they're really trying to crack them. Listen, I believe we're coming to a huge crossroads real soon. Huge. More and more, this is what gives me faith. Back to my faith and my hope and whatnot. More and more doctors are saying no more, and they're joining Team USA, and they're speaking up and speaking out. They're like, look, we're not going down this road anymore. I think a lot of them have just been turned recently when they've been pushing this quote unquote inoculation in 5-month-old babies.
Yeah.
Think about that. That is
yeah.
absolutely insane, ladies and gentlemen. It's to me, I mean, everything they've done to me is a crime against humanity, but that is so wrong. I think that will be the thing that could start. I mean, they want a war. That's what they really want. They want a war. I mean, pushing these
Keep
things
pushing to
in
see
babies
how much people are willing to take. You know?
And I really believe this movement that's going to be coming in March, or maybe a little sooner, and it's going to start in California and work its way. Could be a huge movement, but depending on how far they're willing to push. But it's crazy, and it's absolutely insane. And I pray every day for the wisdom from the Lord, and to give me the wisdom to be able to, tell this story and this journey, and to hope people every week and every month that continually wake up and see what's going on. We can't go down this path anymore. It's like these last 2 years have been how my last 8 years have gone, literally. And you don't want to live like this.
Yeah.
No.
You don't want to live like this.
Well, I mean, a lot of information. I know there's so much more stuff we can get into. We'll have to do it a separate, just because of time and editing and all that stuff. So we'll have to do another thing with you, maybe get Dr. Monzo in. But
yes, I want to thank you both for having me.
Yeah,
It was our pleasure.
It's great. And like as we talk about, our faith and the Lord, I do believe that us crossing paths was divine intervention.
Absolutely.
To have this moment,
as George Norrie would say on Coast to Coast, there's no such thing as coincidence. There's no such thing. There's a reason why I was able to get Michael Chepla and Dr. Monzo together. Now, be it that they only were able to talk a couple times, but there's too many things that have happened, and why the Lord's kept me alive. I'm just this man that was living a life that was good, and then all of a sudden everything got turned. Instead of me running and blaming the Lord, I ran to him, not away from him. And I said to him, I put everything on the line. I said, please just direct me into where you want me to go. Let me stay on that straight and narrow path. I want to give back everything that I have to you. And that pledge that I tell you from Ronald Reagan, I tell you the scriptures that I think everybody should become real familiar with: Psalms 91, Ephesians 6:10-18, the armor of God. And because this, ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just this is a spiritual war that we're fighting.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, thanks a lot. We'll definitely talk about
it's my pleasure.
having you on again. And
my pleasure.